3 years after World War III, the world became silent. No cities, no governments, no voices on the radio, just empty roads and ruins. For years, I believed I was the last human alive, until the day I found something buried beneath the broken city. A bunker. And inside that bunker were hundreds of people. All of them alive, all of them sleeping. The end of the world. The war didn't start the way people expected. There was no warning, no time to prepare. One day the news channels were arguing about politics, and the next day the sky was full of missiles. Countries blamed each other. Military systems activated. Satellites disappeared. Within hours, the world's power grid started collapsing. The internet died. Communication vanished. Cities fell into chaos. Some people tried to escape. Others hid underground. But the worst part wasn't the explosions. The worst part came afterward. Silence. Entire cities were empty. Cars were still parked on highways. Stores were still open. Homes looked like people had simply vanished in the middle of their lives. For 3 years, I walked through that silent world, searching, listening, hoping to find another survivor. But I never did, until yesterday. The discovery. I was exploring the ruins of what used to be a financial district. Tall buildings stood like broken skeletons. Glass covered the streets. Dust filled the air. As I walked through the debris, something strange caught my attention. A metal plate on the ground. At first, it looked like part of the road, but when I moved the rubble away, I saw the edges. It was a hatch, a heavy steel hatch built into the ground. When I cleaned the dirt off its surface, I noticed a symbol engraved in the metal. A military emblem. Below it were 3 words: Emergency Survival Bunker. My heart started racing because in 3 years of searching, this was the first real sign of human planning. Someone had prepared for the end of the world. Entering the bunker. The hatch was incredibly heavy, but surprisingly, it wasn't locked. When I pulled the handle, the open door opened slowly with a loud metallic sound. Cold air rushed upward from below. Inside the opening was a ladder that disappeared into darkness. I hesitated, because entering an underground bunker in a dead world is not always a good idea. But curiosity is stronger than fear, so I grabbed my flashlight and started climbing down. The ladder seemed endless, 20 meters, maybe more. But the deeper I went, the more something strange happened. Lights began turning on automatically, one by one, as if the bunker knew someone had arrived. The underground facility. When I reached the bottom, I stepped into a long underground hallway. Clean metal walls, red emergency lights glowing along the ceiling, ventilation systems humming quietly. This place wasn't abandoned, it was still running, which made no sense. The world above had no power for years, but this bunker looked perfectly maintained. I walked deeper into the facility. Doors lined both sides of the corridor. Some rooms contained food storage, huge shelves stacked with sealed containers, enough supplies to feed hundreds of people for decades. Another room contained water tanks, massive filtration systems still running. Everything here was designed for long-term survival. But the strangest room was at the end of the hallway, because when the door opened, I saw something I never expected. The sleeping humans. The room was enormous, at least the size of a football field. Rows and rows of glass chambers stretched across the floor, hundreds of them, each one glowing with soft blue light. At first, I thought they were empty machines, but when I walked closer, I realized what they were. Cryogenic pods. Inside each pod was a human being, sleeping, breathing slowly, their bodies perfectly preserved. Men, women, even children. More than 1,000 people were stored inside that bunker, all of them frozen in time, waiting. The control system. Near the center of the room was a control station, a large computer terminal surrounded by screens. When I approached the console, the system activated automatically. The screen flickered to life. Text appeared. Global Survival Program active. Another line appeared below it. Cryogenic population, 1,284 humans. My hands started shaking because I finally understood what this bunker was. It wasn't just a shelter. It was a backup plan for humanity. A place where people were preserved until the world became safe again. But then I noticed something strange. Another message appeared on the screen. Surface conditions unsafe for human revival, which meant these people were never meant to wake up yet. The missing leader. I continued exploring the bunker. Eventually, I found another chamber. This one was different, bigger, more advanced. In the center of the room stood a single cryogenic pod. Unlike the others, this one had dozens of cables connected to it. A label was printed on the glass. Bunker Commander. This person was the leader, the one responsible for waking everyone up when the time was right. But when I looked inside the chamber, it was empty. The commander was gone. The alarm. At that moment, the bunker lights suddenly flickered. A loud alarm echoed through the halls. Red warning lights began flashing everywhere. I rushed back to the control room. The computer screen had changed. A new message appeared. Unauthorized presence detected. My heart started pounding because I was the only person awake in that bunker. Then another line appeared. Commander Awakening Protocol activated. But that made no sense. The commander's chamber was empty. The final twist. Suddenly, the large cryogenic chamber in the center of the room started opening. Steam filled the air. Mechanical arms began moving. And then I realized something terrifying. The system wasn't waking up the humans in the pods. It was waking up something else. Something that had been hidden deeper in the bunker. Something that was never meant to wake up early.